Hey, all right, we're back. We're live. If y'all were around just a minute ago, I was doing a whole other stream for a whole other thing, but we are live now talking Legend Keeper. My name is David Gillespie. This is High Shelf Gaming, the Twitch stream slash podcast and all of that good stuff. Super pumped to have you all here talking about Legend Keeper. To introduce everybody very quickly before I hand it over to Braden to run us through it all, starting with Braden. Braden, you make Legend Keeper. You're the reason why we're all here. Dude, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for participating in this Legend Keeper experience that I'm so thankful to have all these amazing creators just making stuff with it. But yeah, I'm Braden, creator of Legend Keeper, software developer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Legend Keeper is my baby.
It is your baby, and we love your baby very much. And next to me is Anto with Icarus Games. Anto, dude, you have made so much great content about Legend Keeper on your YouTube channel. Thank you so much for coming here today.
It is awesome. Really looking forward to it. Should be good fun.
That's awesome. And then lastly, my dear friend Patrick, you have been with High Shelf Gaming since like day 1 or 2, I don't know, but you were there early days. You've run games on our show. You're a novelist. We brought you on because one, you're my chill bro, and you used Legend Keeper in ways that I don't as a novelist. So I really appreciate you being here.
Hey, it's great to be here, and I love Legend Keeper. I love making worlds, and I found a great way to use it to support both my RPG and my fiction writing, which is something I've always wanted to be able to do very easily. So, and I think we all use it very differently in different ways, and we learn from each other. So I know I've learned from you guys, and love talking about this topic. So
yeah, awesome. Well, cool. That I think concludes my job today. No, I will be talking lots.
I'm out.
Yeah,
Off it goes.
yeah. So, Brandon, why don't you take it over and get us rolling on our little discussion about world building?
Absolutely. So like you said, the focus of the stream today is world building. So I wanted to start off with the basics. And so this is kind of a question for all of you. What does world building mean to you, and what are you world building for, and kind of how does Legend Keeper kind of play into that?
I could probably start if we want to do just like left to right. That'd be kind of easy. So for me, I use Legend Keeper in my podcast and in the Twitch stream. All of the games that we run, and here, folks, I'll just log in real quick. High Shelf Gaming, we're doing a lot of games, right? And for me, world building is keeping up with the stuff that came out of my mouth in a game, right? So like I will be running, say, the Cyberpunk game, and I'll say something's going on, and my players thankfully write it down in their journals, and I write it down as a GM to remember that, oh yeah, that's where the big iron gang is, and there are these like rail yard pirates, right? So like tracking that, because I mentioned it once, is really important to me as a GM. That's really, to me, is world building is all like on the fly reactive. it's not a lot of pre-planning goes into my world building.
Yeah, very much seat of the pants sort of planning and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
Anto?
I am very much the same in a lot of ways. A lot of the world building I do is reactive to the things the players do, but I also use it a lot sort of behind the screen before the players ever interact with the world, so that I get a real sense of the world. I find it much easier to run my games if I feel like the world has a level of authenticity. So I do a reasonable amount of pre-world building before I give it to the players, and then it's a lot of running and trying to put the tracks in front of them as they're going around the world.
Awesome. So Patrick, I'm very curious to hear your answer to this question, because I think you use it for DMing too, right? But like, I also started with Legend Keeper for game mastering, right? But you are an author as well, and so I'd love to hear kind of what, like, how do you use it and what for?
yeah, so the part that when I write novels, and I tend to write a series of novels where I keep track of multiple characters and multiple threads along the way, and I like to be able to reference it, right? Oh, they were at this location on this date. Oh, and I tend to write murder mysteries, whether they're science fiction or contemporary, and that guy died there. in that location, and they visited at that time. And oh yeah, put in clues, and using it as a research tool as well. If I find something that's of interest, I put it in there so I can reference it, and then make those great links that the tool provides for me to kind of reference it back and forth. So world building for me is keeping track of the stuff that I've created, but it also is a way for me to throw something in, almost like a whiteboard, hold it there, and then I can come back to it when I fill it out later and be like, oh yeah, that's a location I wanted to go to, and that's where I want them to visit, or I've decided the details here are something I need to keep track of because I won't remember it when I'm 2 months later trying to rewrite that scene at that bar. So
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, LegendKeeper was very much born out of so I actually only got into tabletop RPGs like 2 or 3 years ago.
That's incredible.
I just sort of started on a whim with my friends, right? And I'm a very improv heavy kind of DM, as my players can very much attest to, right? But before and after the fact, I found it so difficult. Like being a GM is so hard. You are literally trying to be a human game engine, sitting next to that. And when it comes to novels too, right? You're a human world simulation, and just keeping all of this stuff in your head. I was like, there has to be a better way than my mushy brain to keep track of all this stuff, which is why I ended up, a software developer. So I was like, I'm going to try to solve this with software.
And now it's like all you do or something like that, right? Like,
yeah, now it's all I do. I don't even have time to play D&D anymore, unfortunately.
I found the same thing. Like I was starting to do content creation in general. I was like, oh, I love all this content that's out there. And then I started making content. And it's like, I don't listen to content anymore because I'm just too busy making my own stuff. So I get it.
Yeah.
It's the curse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely with like a novel, right? So in a trilogy of novels, and I put something together, a reader is more likely to point out my errors of where I've messed up. Wait, no, you said they were over there. And that's the way that building looked at that point in time. And so being able to have a constant reference to go back to easily versus having to flip through the novel. Okay, on page 27, was that where I put that? That's really where the tool comes in to play, because I can just go into it and say, oh yeah, there's that hotel, that building location that, I put them in. And definitely it's being able to keep track of that stuff and then make those notes and being able to reference it faster so that any readers of my work don't point out my errors to me as much as possible.
Yeah. I want to pull up, folks, I just pulled up, we're running a Blades in the Dark game. And like what you're talking about, like notes about the history of things that are happening, all that kind of stuff. Blades in the Dark, there's some creators out there that have made like a fantastic map series. We've put it into our Legendkeeper game. And in our world, the lamp black warehouse is exploded. And so we have this like nice big, I'll just zoom in a little bit. We have this like nice big stamp here that says like, beware, there be ghosts here. And in the world of like
Nice.
Blades in the Dark, the ghosts will come out and destroy you. So you gotta like, the big moments on your game, the big moments on your map, even if it's a pre-generated world, it's super helpful to be like, okay, I need a pin here. I need it big. And I need it to be scary. Just so people know, like, there be dragons over here. This is like the right pin for there be dragons or whatever,
Bad stuff is happening in this corner of the world.
Right, exactly. Yeah, hot stuff. A hot mess over here. So, like, be careful. So I think that's the other thing that we use it for is... It's kind of cool to hear about you, Patrick, doing the same thing in your books of like, here's all this research, all this knowledge about what has happened in your space. And in a lot of times in the game, like that's what we need it for too, is that the timeline of our world has advanced. There are like plot changes that have happened, and we got to do something on the map to represent that change so that we all remember that, oh yeah, that's where the bomb went off, or that's where the virus got released, or that's where the dragon came out of their hoard or whatever. Like all of that stuff is critical, right? And this is really good at giving me those kinds of little markers at the end.
Yeah. I mean, the way I always referenced it, so I wish LegendKeeper had been around when I wrote my first novel, set of trilogy, which was set in Chicago. And I had to keep going to a Google map and kind of zooming in. Oh yeah, that's where I put the police headquarters. That's where I put my investigators' home. And I can do that in LegendKeeper, and I've started that with a new series I want to do where I say, oh yeah, here's Miami. There is where her home is at. This is where that bar is going to be at. And I can just start making those. I'm already building it kind of in advance and adding to it as I write the story and being able to change it. So it's so great to have that kind of dive into detail, and also have the stuff on the side in the wikis kind of section to put all your notes, and have all the linking that is so critical to being able to find stuff, update stuff, keep track of stuff as you're working.
Yeah.
Word. So LegendKeeper is great, right? I'm biased, but it's cool, right? But that aside, right? Like, as creators, as world builders, right? I'm sure you guys have a lot of tools in your toolkit to explore this creative space, right? So do you find yourself, what else do you find yourself using to sort of create this holistic knowledge management experience? That's a really boring way to put it, but
yeah, I'll start. Frankly, in my world, here I'll pull up my Cyberpunk game real quick. In my world, right now we're in Sacramento, so boom, Google Maps, right? First thing, go to Google Maps. Actually, I think this is MapQuest, because MapQuest has a slightly cleaner road thingy. So, so I'll go in there, and then I'll start dropping pins about, like, the various districts or the various shops and all that kind of stuff. Where my, like, over here, where my players are camped out at, all that kind of stuff. And these are, like, very lightweight for me, right? And this is what I do. But frankly, as the game goes on, let me just get into the story here. The players are doing player write-ups for every episode. And this is like, every time they're in, they do a little write-up. And I'm not going to pull up their write-ups because I haven't asked them for this permission. But this is where I found out that one of my player characters, is starting a drug habit out of, like, response to all the trauma that they're going through in the game. And I was like, we have not talked about this in the game, but I see it in the write-up. So thank you so much for mentioning that. So for me, so much of the organization is me handing it to my players and saying, okay, we're making this game together, we're making this world together, we're making the story together. You all have your section where they get to do their thing, and they get to create articles and create pins and all that kind of stuff. And then me, I have a little DM corner where all the secrets that I know are listed out in LegendKeeper, and I can recall them when I'm ready. But otherwise, the player knowledge side, I kind of leave up to them, frankly. Like, I'm really lazy. So I farm out some of that task to them. That's how I use it.
Amazing. The way I mostly use it is, so I take a very map-based approach. I have a few more pins on my map, but most of the pins that I put down, especially within city locations, if you click on either Azim or Jabal, both of them are set up for it, and click on their maps, you'll see that they've got a whole bunch more pins. And
map. Yeah, that looks so good.
Cool.
So
you put me. I love this, dude. This is great. Cool.
So all of the golden colored pins, they're all generic locations. Any one of them that you click on.
The heart brothel. It's cheeky. I love it.
They have no concrete information in. If you click on one of the little beer tankards for a tavern, I list, like, generic names for taverns in there. So when the players go to a new city, I know where the taverns are, but I have no idea what any of the taverns are called or anything about them. I just have a list, so that when a player goes to a tavern, then I choose a name from the list, put the name on the tavern and say, right, this is now the Setting Sun. It's run by Jack's Hammermail, the dwarf. But awesome. None of that existed until the players got there. So I never waste content by creating things ahead of time. I just have a whole bunch of just random lists of business names and different occupation names and NPC names, and I just pull from all these lists and sort of assemble the world as they're interacting with it, so that I don't...
Isn't that always like a heartbreak moment when you're like, I made this awesome bar or whatever, and it's in, like, this special spot in the town, and they're like, that sounds boring, we don't want to go there, and you're like, all that content is gone.
In my last campaign, I did a lot more upfront work for a lot of the locations, and it went pretty well until sort of 3/4 of the way through, where I'd done a couple of weeks worth of work on this one city. They arrived, did one quest, and then just left. And I was like, but all of my NPCs. I was like, that's not happening again. I'll start taking this more modular approach where if they don't interact with an NPC, that NPC ceases to exist in that spot and returns to the ether to be pulled for the next time they go somewhere that NPC could be relevant.
Dude, that is so cool. Like, it sounds like LegendKeeper allowed you to make that change.
Oh yeah, like I spend a lot of my time in the Atlas, so looking at my world map and going, this looks a little bit bare. What can be cool there? Oh, a giant, impossibly large ship that's crashed and has been built into a city. That sounds pretty cool. Put it there. Or what's over here? A city of the dead where they use skeletons as slaves. That sounds cool. That's fine. There's no water anywhere near here, so we'll figure that out later, but it's fine. And just taking that map-based approach with all the pins has been really helpful for that sandbox type of game that I'm running this time around.
That's cool.
Yeah, that sort of, just in time sort of content population is a workflow that I'm super interested in kind of building Legend as one of the workflows to build LegendKeeper towards assisting, right? And so in the future, I can kind of imagine, like, if any of y'all used LegendKeeper earlier on, we had this feature called generators where you could essentially set up like a Mad Lib, and you could then like run the Mad Lib over and over, and you could say like the adjective noun tavern was adjective with these 3 NPCs, and like the NPCs could then have their own generation rules. That we ended up yanking that out just because it was kind of holding back the UI because it was a very experimental feature. But I'm so excited to bring that back because what can happen is like you're describing this kind of filling it out as they go along. I'm imagining this world, right, where you drop a pin and it's attached to a template, right? And that template's attached to a generator. And so when you for the first time open up the article, it's got stuff in it, right?
Yeah.
But it's also editable. So you can still, wield your DM power and, put something narratively interesting there, right? But maybe use that existing content as some sort of inspiration.
That is kind of how I use it at the minute. I go to different generators online and pull just generic information about a town with some population and different buildings, and I'll put it on a pin, and then I won't come back to it until the players go there, and then I decide whether that's any of the content I'm actually going to use.
Yeah, our players, we did 2 generators. One to make NPCs, so I could have an NPC that it would assign the gender, it would assign like notable aspects of them, and so every time I needed an NPC, I just boom, got a description. I don't care if it's a man, a woman, non-binary person, like it just figured all that out for me and told me what they look like. But then like coronavirus hit, and so we as a community made a generator that was like, what day of the week is it? And it was just like a bunch of like they're mentioning it in the chat right now, but it was a bunch of like fragments of day names just kind of jumbled together, and it was like, oh, it's winter day, cool, because we just had no concept of what day it was. So we were even using LegendKeeper as like a coping mechanism early on when we were like so inundated with just losing track of ourselves during the early days of the lockdown. So yeah,
that's funny because my coping mechanism for quarantine is just working on LegendKeeper. Just be like, just keep coding. It's the world will come back eventually, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to bring generators back so bad, and they will, I promise.
Yeah, and to answer the question in chat real quick, the generator was like a really cool tool that you could use to auto make stuff, and it's gone right now because of UI reasons, but it's coming back, which is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, it was honestly it was very cool, but it was so hard to use, and like you could like click in a spot to like edit text, and it would put the cursor like 3 lines away. It was ridiculous.
You had to want it. You had to want it.
Yeah, you really had to want it. Just to kind of, as a quick aside, there are a couple questions that have been waiting here. Devianaut asks, will we get LegendKeeper merch in the future? Yes, actually. Super excited. Justin and I, for those of you who don't know, Justin is... am I still here?
Yeah,
you're still here.
Sorry.
Yep.
Had a little blip there. Justin is the co-founder of LegendKeeper, and we are like actively working on making merch happen because we want merch too. We want some sweet tote bags or something. I don't know, something with cool LegendKeeper branding on it.
T-shirts. I always wear T-shirts. I'll get rid of some old T-shirts to put some LegendKeeper T-shirts.
Right. Don't you dare get rid of your HSG T-shirts. All right.
Well, that's the rule my wife has.
Yeah.
Any more T-shirts come in, one has to go out. So.
Yeah.
And then Devianaut had one more question. Would love to know about the future of licenses, and more importantly, will we get the opportunity for a one-time license? So I will be like super candid here. We're a super small operation. It's just me and Justin, and like business model and pricing, like we're still figuring that out. That's something that's so hard to figure for a consumer application. I will say we are building LegendKeeper as a collaborative app, which kind of implies like a centralized server and ongoing costs. And so subscription model is probably likely. That being said, we haven't given up on figuring out if there's some way to offer something as like a one-time thing, but just the way LegendKeeper is set up right now, we just don't have any plans for it. Just because it's hard to create an application and then support it, because it keeps costing money, right, to run. But stay tuned on that, because that's a challenge that I really want to face head on.
I want to jump in real quick. Folks, we're going to be giving away some LegendKeeper licenses. I just started up the giveaway machine. If you put ! LegendKeeper, all one word, there's a couple of people doing it in the Twitch chat. If you do that, that'll enter you in to win the beta key. So just a quick note to everybody about what we're doing in terms of giveaway. We're giving away beta keys today.
I saw someone type in Braden Keeper there.
No, you don't get to have your own Braden. Okay.
DMR, I see you.
As soon as this is over, we're going to box him up, ship him straight to him.
You just tell me what features you want, and I'll add them.
That's dangerous.
Go Code Monkey.
Yeah. Oh man, lots of stuff. Okay, cool. Love it. So I think I may have blown up the chat and cost us a question. I saw a question in there. Will you be incorporating features to all LK to act as a virtual tabletop at any point in the future, regardless of how far out in the future, I think is the nature of that question. But yeah, LegendKeeper
Gotcha.
as virtual tabletop.
That's a great question. So I actually did a poll with the Patreon community, which had a great vote turnout, which I was super excited about. And I kind of put it up. We put out little feelers to kind of see what people are most interested in next. We don't change the existence of features so much as we want to say, like, you know, what next do you want? Just because we don't really have like a long-term roadmap per se, but really like long-term plans and a short-term roadmap. So to answer that question, I think for now, no. Because one, the existing community was really, really not interested in that. I think LegendKeeper staying focused on kind of one, you know, a set of like world building use cases, I think is super important, especially this early on. We just want to make something that's very like focused and, you know, hits that stuff you needed to do, as focused as possible. That being said, I could imagine a future where like we start adding features that you could coincidentally maybe use it as a virtual tabletop, which I think I brought this up in I did a podcast with HSG in the past, and we kind of brought this up where, you know, eventually the map will probably get like little tokens you can move around on it, just because that's also useful for world building. And like, if those update live, like I could see someone, you know, maybe using that as a really, really lightweight virtual tabletop. But as far as like going like heavy into VTT, like there's so many great softwares out there. Foundry Virtual Tabletop is the one that, you know, comes to my head immediately. It's incredibly powerful. So definitely check that one out. But yeah, no like concrete plans for LegendKeeper Virtual Tabletop at this time. Great question.
I think someone also had a question about whether integration with other VTTs was going to come in the future as well.
Ooh, that's a great
Oh
one.
yeah, so this would kind of implies like public API maybe. Or for those of you unfamiliar, that's application programming interface. That's just a way to like talk to LegendKeeper without using the UI. So let's say if like Foundry, maybe Foundry Virtual Tabletop had a plugin and it could talk to LegendKeeper and say like, hey, what does this article say? Blah, blah, blah. Public APIs probably a long way out, just because public APIs cost a lot to support. That being said, within like a couple days of us adding the JSON export feature, someone started working on JSON LegendKeeper export to Foundry, and they had their LegendKeeper articles in Foundry in like a prototype within like 40 to 72 hours. It's like, it was crazy. And so there's definitely integrations coming. Maybe not like a live integration, but definitely down the road, I can see more sort of like, you update something in LegendKeeper and, it pings Foundry, the Foundry plugin, and says, hey, something changed, like update your stuff. Like that would be super cool. But that would require the public API, which is probably a decent ways out.
I love it. So I guess I did want to kind of get a sense from you guys. I'm really curious about like timeline based stuff, because in my world, like my characters are traveling, they like go to a city and they camp and they do a bunch of stuff in around that city as like cyberpunk edge runners, taking like any job they can get and trying to solve big mysteries while under the oppressive thumb of the Sacramento whatever. So but keeping track of the timeline of that kind of stuff, is there, do you guys, what do you guys do right now as GMs and that sort of thing?
You go into the wiki on my world, you can see how I'm tracking my time. So if you go up to the top category for the little calendar icon on the far right, and click on that, I keep all my information in there. And if you click on 11:59 on the side, that's the current year of my game world. And then I have all of the months set up as tabs, and then I just have a table with the days of the month. And as the players are going through, I keep track of our session number, what the real world date is, and then what has been happening in those sessions. And during the session, I keep like scratch notes, so there you can see ambush, hide in house. And then at some point in the future, I go back and expand that into a more substantial entry with the specific things that happened. And I found that to be really useful, especially when 2 years down the line you go back to an area and someone was like, what happened last time we were here? I have to go, let me check my notes and go through all the calendar stuff to find out what was going on.
I do something not quite as extensive, but it's pretty straightforward. I just have the year, and then of course mine still uses the Gregorian calendar that we're familiar with, and I just have all the months listed with every day. So in some ways it resembles this, but mine's a little bit less dynamic, right? Mine is, on February 19th, Garten Tinnen disappeared, and the link to Garten Tinnen, and then later on I have on October 13th a bunch of crazy people escaped a insane asylum, and now they're being tracked down by bounty hunters, and that's where my story starts. So I kind of build it, and then as I work through the story, I add, okay, this is when they went to I use the Turkey Point nuclear reactor in Miami as a secret lab for a mega corporation, and so I have where they went and visited that and found the body, and that just helps me keep track of that kind of time frame, so I can say, oh yeah, that was October 13th, and so it's very easy to reference that way, and I don't have to again flip through existing copy. The other tool I use a lot is Scrivener. That's where I write my narrative stuff and where I put the actual words of the novel into place, and I can shift some scenes. And then I use LegendKeeper as sort of my research and tracking tool, and so that's where I put that calendar, and I kind of have both of them open at the same time as I'm working through a novel. So yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, time is such an interesting problem.
Because yeah,
it's hard. Like, but just to like. Throw this out there, time is going to be like a first-class feature of LegendKeeper. So to kind of give a very, very loose peek at what our roadmap sort of looks like. We've got sort of four major, or three major new parts coming up, right? And this will actually answer one of the questions. Any plans for a browsable content library like DM's Guild? So one of the big things we're working on is LegendKeeper Community, which is just revamping all the sharing features. And we can go deeper into that in a little bit, because I know you guys have content that people are like, I want to use their content in my LegendKeeper. How do I do it, right?
Right.
Time, which is like a formal timeline system. And then finally, relationships or relations, where you can kind of visualize the social dimension of your world, right? But this we want to build like a really cool timeline feature, and we're still kind of speccing it out. But the idea would be to provide a way to see all of these chronological things in order on an interactive timeline, or maybe you could switch to like a calendar view and consume it on a more local level, right? So we're super excited to build stuff like that, because like these tables are super cool, but I can imagine they're not like the ideal way to interact with like time things.
No, so especially if you've got if you've had a lot of things happening in like 1 month, and you've got to scroll and scroll and scroll, it can slow things down a little.
Yeah. So we're imagining something. This is all just like brain. This is off the cuff improv here, so don't take this as concrete promises for what's to come.
You told us on High Shelf Gaming stream you're going to do this, and it's already done. And
I'm putting this in my LegendKeeper calendar app right now, hitting that.
Braden said he would do this. Get your pitchforks out. Like maybe you can view an event on this like slice of your timeline, and like scroll in and like zoom, and like all these events, these like smaller scale events start popping into the timeline as you zoom in. They like fade in and cluster as you zoom out. You can like be in your wiki, and it can say like, oh, this guy died in 1692, and you hit it, and it like takes you to that spot in the timeline, right? Maybe there's like a cool animation or something.
That'd be cool.
So there's all sorts of these little integrations we want to do that would make kind of reasoning about the chronological dimension of your world a little easier.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
That's something that's just like so hard, especially as like if you're a GM doing this grand epic fantasy, and you've got all these characters, and they have like ancestors that have set up all of these plot hooks in the past, and there's all this stuff, and like being able to just see it laid out, you can look at like these three like points in the past, like, oh, so and so hid the magic horn here, right? But then it was like uncovered later, and then it was re-lost here. So now you can create this cool new plot hook about what's next to come for it.
I think that the mentioned in feature is a really nice stopgap between that, for being able to get a picture of where things are happening.
Yeah, since I'm already in your world, Anto, do you have something I can pick on that would show the mentioned in and all that stuff?
If you go back to the main atlas and then go to Azim's main wiki page, so if you click on Azim and open that up, it's the wiki. Scroll up,
got it.
Oh,
I'm not your GM. I don't. No, I have low permissions as a guest in your world.
I can immediately rectify that.
Yeah. So that's one of the cool things, right? Is that we can share access to one another, and then control permission set. Like some people are just viewers, some people get to create, some people get to do all this kind of stuff. So yeah.
So I made you an admin. A reload should
sort
that, I think.
Ooh, that should be live. That's a bug I need to fix.
There we go.
Oh, cool.
So if you grab that, that's the one, and then you should be able to see all of the mentions in. There we go.
Yeah.
So you get to see all of the things that mention the city of Azim. I've not set that up for all of my articles, because a lot of the world was created before that feature came in, but it is something I'm going through as and when I dip into articles, add in the keeping track of what's mentioned where, and it makes it really handy to get an idea of, particularly with characters, which NPCs have met each other, because for my NPC template, I have a little checkbox for whether or not the players have met the NPC, but I have no way of knowing whether two NPCs have met. So that mentioned in is a really good way to sort of keep track of that.
That's awesome. There's so many things that like, I create these features for like some like one reason, right? Where I'm like, oh, this would be cool, and I think it integrates with this thing this way. This synergizes well, blah blah blah. And then I'll put something out there, and then y'all users and people in the LegendKeeper community will come up with a use for things that I'm like, oh my god, that's so cool. Like, anyways,
Yes.
I'm just always impressed by the way the really cool things that people do. Yeah, so this mentioned in if you have used like other wiki software, I struggle to come up with a specific example, but that's also called like backlinks in other
Yes.
software, where it's like these are the things that talk about this thing. And one of the interesting things about this mentioned in feature is you actually, so LegendKeeper has mentions, right, where you can hit at and like literally mention something, but mentioned in will also pull not specifically mentioned things.
Oh,
like
cool.
they were like just raw text, which can be annoying if you have an article called like that can be a problem. We want to add some like controls to that to clean that up. But
great.
it's kind of a fun way to navigate around your world.
That's really cool.
That's super cool.
But
Real quick, Patrick, I'm sorry to cut you off. Folks that I've DM'd, I've sent a couple of people whispers to get you sorted out. If you would, please send me your email address in that whisper chat so I can send that to Braden so that he can get you access to LegendKeeper. So it's just a little bookkeeping for everybody who's watching. I do want to get you all access, but I need to know an email address that you'd like me to use to hand to Braden so he can get you access in. So sorry for that quick interruption, Patrick.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think we approach world building in some kind of different ways. And one, and I've learned a lot from Anto. I watched like one video and I think I learned like 1,000 things instantly that I didn't know before. I think I even told you I ran and started doing stuff immediately. But, I think the application and the way I use it also, I use it more simply for my novel, but it almost acts like a mood board. Because I put pictures in there, like a lot of times before I have any text or any write-up, because I'm like, I have a picture of that character in my head. I go to person does not exist. I find a picture that kind of matches what I think that they are, and I pop that in there, or I find some other image if I think it represents, some other character. And so not only do I use the maps and the pins, but I use the way to put images either kind of tied to the actual wiki article or as a part of the article proper itself to just give myself visual cues and indicators. And when I'm writing, I can actually, because I'll have music while I'm writing. If I'm writing a cyberpunk novel, I have a bunch of, cyberpunkish music without lyrics that I listen to, and I'll pull up those images. I'll be like, it just kind of helps get me into the mood for writing and in that space and in that world. And it also helps keep me consistent as possible, within what I'm creating, so that my, because the novel writing process can take, a long time. I mean, it can take a year or more for me to write, 70,000 words if I'm going at my kind of pace, and my mind can change over time, and I allow it to change, but sometimes it's just because it drifts versus being able to have kind of like, that's what my arch enemy Garten Tinnen looks like, and that kind of thing. So
one thing that I know that a lot of people ask for fairly frequently, and I'm sure I've seen it in the chat, Braden, is shareable templates and templating built into LegendKeeper to be able to share your templates with another person.
This is something that we want to bring this in as soon as possible. LegendKeeper is a very kind of private by default experience, right? Like you create a project and it's kind of like, a Google Doc for yourself, right? It's just you. And then you kind of invite people in and they can see it. But there's another mode of interaction that we would really like to introduce, which is there being some kind of community that you can access, right? And so what we're kind of imagining is like, maybe you make a template, right? Anto has this really cool GM screen he made in LegendKeeper, right? And so if he could, copy a link, right, and just post it somewhere, and then someone else could go to that link, see a very like nicely presented presentation of that page, and they get to click a button that's just like, add this to my project too. That's something that we're really excited to bring. And then we also really want to introduce like a literal community where you can bundle up stuff you've made, templates or maps or whatever, right? And go see a pack of those things in some sort of community, and just hit like install, and it's in your project, right? And I actually built that into LegendKeeper a super duper long time ago. We just haven't built any features on top of it yet, but that's like, spoiler alert, that's the next thing we're working on. So
wow.
That is just what I was about to ask about packaging multiple pages. Because David, if you click over into my wiki and go to that DM screen, you'll see that the way I have it set up, if you go to the wiki and then the dice icon at the top,
Rules.
and then DM screen.
This is so cool.
Oh yeah.
So,
this is what I meant. Go ahead, Anto. I'm so excited about this. It's so cool.
Yeah.
The way I have all of this set up is that almost every word on this entire page is a link to another page. And when I'm running the game, I use it to reference for rules without having to leave the DM screen. So I have all of this information that I can reference without ever having to leave the page or expand things and lose my place. I can quickly go from travel place to armors and shields without having to flit around within the app. And being able to do that really suits my workflow. And I know that to be able to give that to other people would need to be able to package up all of the linked pages to it, so they don't just get a blank page with the layout but nothing else.
But then you have to be careful, right? Because like SRDs, is it open gamer license?
All of the stuff I put in the DM screen is SRD.
Okay, good. Yeah. See, that's the way to do it. Because
the kind of the experience I'm imagining, and again, this is off the cuff product development live, right? So take it with a grain of salt. But like, let's say you want to build one of these modules, right? And so you add your DM screen. Ideally, what would happen is LegendKeeper would look through your document and be like, hey, this links to like 56 other things. Do you want to try to add those too? And then just kind of help you build a module by kind of resolving your links against each other. But David, like you said, one of the reasons this kind of stuff takes so long to implement is content sharing opens up an entire new universe called the legal universe that we have to treat very sensitively,
right?
Because we are a small operation and we don't want to get nuked into oblivion by
right,
heavy hitting content creation companies that have lots and lots of lawyers. And we just want to do right by all of the creators out there who work really hard, right? Like we frown upon piracy, right? So we don't want to have to.
Right. Yeah. Like they have also spent their entire life making this game, and they don't want to see it like given away on some platform they can't look into. So
exactly. And so there's some give and take we kind of have to figure out on how to handle that kind of stuff. But it's certainly not an unsolvable problem. It's just a hard one, right? So we're excited to develop on that more.
Awesome.
That's awesome. That's really good. And I'm just sitting here giving away stuff, folks. So if y'all see the chat blowing up with more things, I'm just giving away LegendKeeper. So look for your name in chat from the little bot, and then I'll be sending you a whisper.
Yeah. Well, I've seen one question before it scrolls away. I thought it kind of interests me too. Is mind maps or neural nets of either creating them or how the articles link together via mind maps or neural nets.
Yeah,
absolutely. So that's, in our mind, that's what we're calling the relations feature.
I was about to say, that feels like a relationship thing if I ever heard it. Because our stuff is complicated. Who betrayed who, who's on the take, from this person, who's in love with that person. Like, all that stuff matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what we're thinking with that is like, you add some bit of data to your article, right? We don't really know what it looks like yet. Maybe it's in the sidebar, maybe it's in the body of the article. But you say like, this guy's the brother of the king or, whatever, right? Sure. And that's just kind of automatically plucked out and put into a knowledge graph that represents your project. And then you can go to the, the relations section and see this mind map of this stuff put together. And then from the mind map, you could even create articles directly from the mind map and, drag links between stuff. And then you go back to the wiki and you see them there too. Like it's all, it would all be integrated. But yeah, relations is something we're really excited to build too, just because like you're right, like visualizations like that are so powerful. And so imagine being able to see kind of the knowledge graph of your entire project, right? And then maybe you've got some controls that are like, okay, actually, just show me, Sarah's entire family tree, and it just filters it down and, maybe does a cool physics animation and filters it down, and you can see, this character's family tree, or, everyone who's ever possessed this item, or, that kind of thing.
Well, that'd be so great, because I've spent a lot of time, more than I probably should, creating organizational charts of my fictional police department, my fictional corporations, my fictional, and tying them up. It's like, oh yeah, so there's the lieutenant, there's the chief, there's the detectives, the homicide division, who, so that'd be absolutely fantastic.
And of course, like, I in my dreams, I'm like, oh, everything then needs to integrate perfectly together. So could you go to a node on the mind map and say like, okay, what events are this person involved in, right? And then that takes you to the timeline. It's like, and highlights all the things they were in. So there's all sorts of cool, hyperlink, knowledge internet of things we can do with this stuff, which I'm very excited.
I think the word you're looking for is wizardry.
Yeah. Wizardry, yeah.
Yeah, that's always the thing that I think is interesting, as like someone who is looking to recall this while I'm running a game. The wizardry of the layout is like the most important thing, right? Like how do I go about discovering this? Like, one, I have to input, sure, but then two, I have to discover later, and usually I'm doing that while the game is running. And so like I don't envy you in sorting out that challenge.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah,
he says. Fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and quick housekeeping, folks, I am starting up the giveaway again, so if you did not win last time, do it again this time. We're able to give away 10 per lot, so I'm just kind of like opening it, getting a bunch of responses, and then I'm going to close it, and we're going to give away another 10 licenses, because what the heck, you're all here. Let's have fun together.
Yeah. Dole them out.
Yeah.
The Writing Padre asks, what do you think is the upper limit on articles and map pins in one single world? This is a great question.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's got to stop somewhere, but we haven't found it yet.
Yeah, like
I will say,
I look at Anto's map and I think, man, that's so well populated. There's so many pins compared to my maps, which are like 4 pins, 5 pins, But I imagine there's got to be somebody out there that's like just a wall of pins, right? I mean, there's got to be a project that's like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, like. There's definitely performance work that needs to be done for very, very large projects. It was, we designed for like the experience and features first, and then solve for, performance optimizations later. So I have a lot of work to do in that regard. But I was actually doing a support ticket for a LegendKeeper user. So to give some context, whenever anyone has a problem, they reach out to me. I'm like, okay, cool. Can you invite me to your world so I can take a look at it? They invite me to their world. And so in this one particular occasion, this user invited me, and I opened up the Atlas, and I couldn't see a map. Speaking of wall of pins, I couldn't see a map because it was just all pins. And I will say it was a little laggy, so I can't. There's definitely work to be done.
That's great.
And
so I was like, oh wow, this is a lot of pins.
All the pins. See, I look at my map and I think I need more pins.
Yeah.
I want to not be able to see my map.
Yeah, it's something to aspire to. Like as a content creator, as a creator of this stuff, it's like, oh man, to know it's possible. I am woefully behind. I should be doing more, and will continue.
Because
go
go
ahead, Brandon. No, you go.
Another one of the big things we want to do is like we want to make the Atlas like even sexier. Like we're thinking about, what does using some like game engine sort of stuff look like here, just to like make it super duper performant and sexy. We're still figuring that out. That's kind of further out than this other stuff we've been talking about.
The Atlas is definitely one of my favorite places, and the pins especially. Like, you can see on my Atlas there's different colors for everything, and I color code everything so I know at a glance what's going on. So all the big orange ones are my city states. They're the really important places. All the little gold icons are little villages and towns dotted around. Green and blue are natural features, and then all those purple ones, those are my little points of interest, and those are where all the juice comes from, where I'll point at the map and go, right, I'm going to put something there, and then figure out something cool to put there.
That's cool. That's really
I use the icons a lot as representational stuff, just to help me keep things organized. Little robot for my Android, and a cop symbol. There's one for that for my cops, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and the shapes and the use of it, because it gives me a feel sometimes in being able to put in, like, oh yeah, here two swords cross. That's where a battle happens. It's like instantaneously, recognizable. And if you show it to players or show it to other people, they say, oh yeah, a battle happened there, and dig in and find it. So yeah, I love the icon kind of functionality and the color usage. Yeah.
Let's see.
Y'all have seen my stuff. Well, I'll say there. I'm sure there's a bunch of other questions going in, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to create worlds, and a lot of different ways that we interact with it. So
yeah. This is a fun question. I'm curious to hear your answers as well. TRD23 asks, what is the #1 feature everyone on the panel would like to see in LegendKeeper? And especially if, like, obviously we've talked about like these fun things like, timeline and graph and all that stuff. But like, imagine I'm 1 million developers, right? And money is no object. Like, what's like the coolest thing you can think of just to like get our imaginations going?
So for me, this is like totally unfair.
Oh, dude, no worries.
But
I'm sure everyone will only interpret it as a promise for it to appear in LegendKeeper.
Yeah. Because of the way I roll, and I am lazy, I would very much like to just be able to have a mic that is listening to me while I'm DMing, and just write out a whole article of everything that I say.
That would be so cool.
And then when I'm done, I can be like, all right, let's get rid of all the Cheeto sounds. Let's get rid of all the curse words. Sure. But auto link, thank you.
Introducing the LegendKeeper personal assistant.
Yeah. No one person should have that amount of power.
That's me.
I think for me, my main two, one is more community focused and wanting that shareable template system so that all the people that say, will you send me your DM screen? I can go, yes, here is my DM screen.
Yeah.
And then for the purpose of running the game, really simple, just a distance tracker on the Atlas.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Just to be able to not have to count my hexes and be like, right, you're 6 days away. I can just track it and be like, there we go.
Yeah, like a map calibration feature would be really cool. And then like once we add like sharing and stuff, maybe maps could be like pre-calibrated, right? Like, I have this map of this, this corner of Faerun, right? And it's, to the T calibrated to the actual distances, and maybe you could measure across it. That would be cool.
If it had, again, dreams, if it had a feature to be able to not only define a distance by like miles, but also to be able to define it by days. So measure a length of pixels and go, have the measurement be user defined, so I can go, right, this is 500 miles away, or I can be like, okay, it's going to take you 10 days to get there, so I can choose what type of information to give the players.
Right.
I feel like that would be really great for story writing as well. Like if you've got these characters on some kind of journey, right? Like being able to just ask LegendKeeper, like how long is this actually going to take?
I could just throw some quick shade on the end of Game of Thrones when they're like teleporting all over the world. It's like really like a little bit of just look at the map when you write what happens next.
Just put it on the wall in the writer's room.
Yeah.
So another thing I've probably spent way too much time doing. So when I was working on my novels in Chicago, I had Google Maps up and I was street driving through the city, going through and saying, okay, so this is what the city looks like. This is the turns. I was using the distances and those kinds of pieces to help me, understand, just what it would be like. Because I don't live in Chicago. I've been
Such a cool idea.
So that's how I drove through Chicago for writing that novel. The thing I would like to see is probably a combination of Atlas and Timeline, where I can attach a pin to a specific time, and I can alter the timeline and see pins that are associated with that time or not, and kind of get a historical sort of appearance of pins or not pins, because things in my world
cool.
Or like
change.
as they move, as the pins move across the map, like maybe it's a big war and you're watching the front line inch closer and closer, something like that. Like that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, front line or character starts here and they kind of move through space and over to here at this point in time, and kind of being able to see again. You tie it to the timeline, and then you can tie it to a pin or article, and just be able to see, like you could change, like for example, on Anto's, I hope this doesn't ruin anything. It gets destroyed. A dragon comes in and destroys it. You can say, oh, this was destroyed on X date, and you could actually change the pin to represent what that is. So,
yeah, that would be so cool. I'll brainstorm on ways we could do that with the timeline system, because it sounds hard. I'm not gonna lie. It sounds hard to build, but I'm up for a challenge.
I'm holding you to it though. So next week.
Remember, you promised on the stream that you would do this, and that
even if it was
next week.
Something like similar to how the tabs work in articles at the minute. So you could have maybe 1 or 2 tabs for your Atlas, and have one for pre-event, one for post-event. That would be super useful. My last campaign basically ended with the players blowing up the country by mistake, but being able to represent that change from here's when the world wasn't destroyed to look what you did.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I love it.
I could definitely see tabs playing into that too.
Yeah, so there you go. We are your what is it? Your customer
focus group, right?
Focus group.
We got you set for the next year.
Yeah,
got so many things.
I definitely have my work cut out for me. That's for sure.
Yeah.
One question: do you have plans on Monty Hall 10 asks? Do you have plans for growing your team for working on LegendKeeper? Yes, definitely. And we are slowly doing that. But we just gotta grow, get more users, get more budget, and that kind of opens up the. Thanks, Justin. That kind of opens up the all the possibilities.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't remember if I put this in for an hour or an hour and a half. Do either of you remember how I booked this one? On
hour.
An hour. Okay, so we are getting lowish on time with 2 minutes spare. Do we want to are there 2 or 3 questions we could do quick hits on? We only get a word or 2 to answer. Would that be cool, or should we start wrapping up?
Lightning round.
I'm down to do a lightning round. That'd be fun.
Okay.
Sorry for those of you with more open-ended questions. I might gloss over them just for the sake of the lightning round.
Well, we can capture those and maybe do something with them later or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Really cool. Deviant, can we add the ability to make our own pin designs or insert our own vector icons? So image uploads for pins is in the works. Not currently, but we do want to do that.
That's so cool.
What else?
All the pins will be Braden's face.
Because he is a beautiful man.
What a nightmare
for Justin.
Yeah,
We've
got to make Justin's dreams come true.
We make a whole world. The 3 of us could collaborate, make a world, and it's just Braden's face everywhere. Hey, Braden, we're working on this project. We ran into this problem. Will you come and take a look? And the world map is just Braden's face, and all the pins are Braden's face.
With little facial gestures on the face.
Oh, man. I see one question about the UI. There was a change in creating articles. Totally hear you on this one. The creation, there's some accessibility issues with the creation dialogue, and I'll definitely take a look at those, because ideally you can like navigate the LegendKeeper UI without taking your hands off the keyboard, but that's like not currently possible. So I want to make it so you can do that.
I think there are requests now to get ensure that we have a Braden pins, face pins DLC. I think it should be part of the merchandise that you have too.
That could be your whole monetization strategy. It's like, all right, $1 per pin.
Oh man, we've created a monster.
It was inevitable.
That's right. I love it.
Any plans to place quick tags onto the article creation pop-up? User-defined tags. Not currently. What I would recommend for now is using templates for that. I know that's a little clunky, so I'll definitely look into this. Okay, that was those were my lightning round technical questions. Probably not crazy exciting.
No, it's good. I'm still like feverishly giving away things, so I'll.
Okay, cool.
Let's. If everybody's cool, maybe we take like 3 more minutes, and I'll finish up the giveaways while we do like 1 or 2 more questions, I think.
Absolutely. Silicon asks, are you going to add the ability to add paths to maps? I've thought about this a little bit. So one of the things we want to do, obviously, is improve the Atlas experience, like I was saying earlier. And so being able to add shapes or like regions to the Atlas would be so cool. Like you could maybe, add some sort of layer, maybe, calling back to Photoshop, maybe. You add a layer and maybe that's like your kingdom layer. And so you draw regions and you can attach articles to those regions. And so I could see something like being able to draw actual paths. And so then you throw like distance calibration in there and you have paths. Then you've got some cool, like really smart, things you might be able to do. We're just building Google Maps at this point.
And then the timeline of watching those those boundaries move back and forth as a war wages across the continents.
And then we build hardcore radiant AI into all of the articles. We can give them schedules, and then they travel along the paths and meet each other and simulate a commerce system throughout the...
A layer tool would be really cool for that, though, because if it supported transparent sort of overlay images, then you could have your 2 different timeline-based events happening and overlay them over the map like that, rather than have it happen dynamically.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah, one of the goals we try to do is like, is there a way to provide a feature that's somewhat generic that you could sort of build your ideal experience from, right? And so map layer, like you said, like map layers are very much that kind of thing where maybe your map layers are, and by the way, we don't have map layers yet, just to clarify, but we will. Maybe your 2 map layers are the 1st and 2nd floor of a tavern, right? But, or maybe your map layers are, the kingdom bound, like the geopolitical boundaries, and then the weather of that region, depending on how crazy you're getting with your Photoshop skills, right? Like there's all sorts of stuff you could do with kind of generic sort of features like that.
Yeah, generic features are definitely my preference, because anything that just stays out of the way when you don't need it, and then you can use it when you're like, right, okay, now I need to know where the weather is, bring in my weather layer, but it's not something you have to contend with all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that, like, one of the things that would be actually that I think you already kind of do is the updates. Whenever somebody goes in and makes an edit, I can just look at the change logs in the server. And that's really helpful because I kind of hinted at it earlier. We as a group are kind of doing a pseudo play-by-post between sessions with these write-ups. And so it's really interesting to see, like, people are making a world and they're doing their thing. And then as my players contribute, I see the change log and I see, oh, cool, there's a new article. They're having some sort of dialogue back and forth. And they're both editing the same article sometimes. So it's kind of a weird, like, because this is not like other platforms that are out there, and we can do live shared editing of a document, the possibilities of how to use this to game are much different than anything else I've ever messed with. I meant to mention that earlier, and I'm very sorry to recall it now, that, we're actually doing kind of a pseudo play-by-post thing every so often, which is really
That's so cool. And I think there's so much stuff we can do here. Like, maybe, you in the future could like follow a particular article, right? And you like get a notification when, in that article where you're collaborating with these 3 other people in this play by post kind of thing, you get a little ping that's like, hey, like so-and-so added something about their character here, right? And you could go and respond to that.
That's true. Yeah, I have to go and hunt for that right now, and I'm happy to do it because I know it's emergent stuff for us. But that would be really cool if it was so-and-so replied to your comment in this thing. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, well, I need to go do that, and combat has begun. Let's all get together and role play out the combat or whatever the thing is.
Yeah, LegendKeeper's editor actually does support inline comments. I just haven't turned it on or like given it like a data source. So I'll peek into that too. Maybe there's something cool there.
That is attractive. I think I have given away I'm going to do like 2 more. I think I've given away pretty much everything that I can right now. Obviously, like, this is awesome, and I love that you just kind of gave me a lot of free form to just give stuff away. I really appreciate you, Braden.
The more the merrier. I just like, not to get all sappy, but like, I just like seeing people create things, right? Like that's what brings me the most joy. So the more people coming in and expressing their creativity, that's what I'm all about.
That's awesome. Well, is there anything else that we need to touch on before we look at wrapping this up? I want to make sure.
The only thing I can think of is the activity feed function. Super useful for West Marches style games where you've got a whole bunch of moving parts with multiple GMs and things like that. Crazy useful.
Yeah. Like our Cyberpunk game was West Marches for a while, and it was like critical to know what's going on in my world.
I know West Marches is like somewhat niche, right? But like, I would love to position LegendKeeper as like the best platform for West Marches, because I think it's with some tweaks, I think that we could totally do that. Like, for example, like the activity log, like, isn't super high resolution right now. Like, we could add, more activities for different, actions, right? And another thing we want to do is like user groups. So instead of just like member and admin, maybe there's admin and party A and party B and party C. And so there's so much cool stuff we could do there. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, the sharing features and being able to assign, right, this party can see this article, but this party can't. This GM can edit this article, but this GM can only look at it. That would be bonkers.
That I feel like that's bonkers difficult, but I would echo that. The idea of having multiple GMs with their separate powers, their own separate GM corners, like that would be something that I don't think anybody else would even like. I don't even know how I would begin to do that. In any other tool that exists, like
yeah, as a consumer, I like listen to you guys all like bright-eyed, like, oh yeah, that sounds so cool, and then like, the developer part of me is just like, oh no.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do I keep saying these things?
Yeah. No, but
we can do it.
It is one of those things that like West Marches specifically is very difficult to organize, to run, to play in. I mean, it is like gaming on a whole nother crazy level. And so, like, for a tool to even begin to approach helping that is already pretty awesome. And if you, like did a bunch of stuff for that specifically, that'd be pretty amazing, honestly. Like,
I think that the way the tools in the app are set up at the minute, as long as everyone's acting in good faith, it supports it to a degree. Yep. Like, as long as everyone agrees that they're not going to go and write a whole load of nonsense in any one article, then if you've got a group that goes to a location and nearly gets wiped out there, then the players can make a note on that article being like, we went here at level 6 and we were almost killed by the basilisk that was there or whatever. And then another group can look at that and go, well, we're level 12. We'll probably be able to say, let's go and do that. Relying on the good faith of everyone, that works already, but being able to codify that within the functions would be sweet.
Yeah, that would be super cool.
Yeah.
His mind's churning. Look at it.
Oh yeah.
Brain's
Yeah.
gears are going.
All right.
Yeah, I
Well,
see
now,
it.
now that we've
Putting
given
everything
you
into my
so many tasks, we should
clearing my next 3 years.
Just clearing the calendar.
By the way, I did see one question pop up. It's probably worth answering. Mr. Yogi asked, is there a way to pull out your work in any way? I mean, if you stop your subscription, you get cut off from all your work and effort. And
Oh, that is a wonderful question. I take this very, very seriously. And so I just want to acknowledge that like having an online only web app like does make it harder as a creator to have control over your creative content. That's something that I'm like acutely aware of every day. And so one of the things we did add is there's a full wiki export. So you can just say, hey, just evac my entire wiki. It stays in LegendKeeper too. But LegendKeeper will zip it up as JSON files or HTML and send it to your email where you can download it. And that HTML export actually has valid links internally. So if you are technically inclined and you want to like host it as a static site, you could totally do that. Like you could tweak the CSS, wow. You could follow the links to your generated articles, and that's all offline. If you stop pledging at this point, nothing happens. You retain access to LegendKeeper. That's just kind of how the beta is working right now. We'd super appreciate it if you kept pledging. If you plan on continuing to use it, that would be awesome. But we're not going to make you. That will probably change once we like fully launch. Which, to answer another question, we don't really know when that's going to happen yet. We kind of take the game company approach of it'll be done when it's done, just to help us sleep easier at night.
Sure. Yeah.
But yes, and I would like the export features to get even better. And we eventually want to tackle like full offline support at some point too, where you don't have to worry about online stuff anymore.
That's very cool. That's very cool. A little bit of housekeeping. I have whispered to everybody who's won so far. If you would, please check for that. You can do it, I think, on the website and in the app and all of that kind of stuff. I'm asking what your email address is so I can send that on to Braden. So please go check for my whisper. The High Shelf Gaming has sent you a whisper if you've won. Go ahead and send me the email. I'll get it to Braden. If you don't get to it today, that's fine, because the whispers stay active. They're perpetual. So just whenever you get back to the app and all that kind of stuff, send it to me, later today, tomorrow, next week, whenever you can. And I will get your contact info to Braden so you can get access to the beta. Oh, yeah, and everybody, please, if you signed up on Gen Con, please return your tickets or do the submit ticket or whatever in the Gen Con stuff, just so we get credit for people showing up. Frankly, probably half the audience didn't come from Gen Con. But if you came here from Gen Con, please go back to the events page and, turn in your ticket. That'd be mighty nice of you. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. And I just wanted to clarify one more thing. Even when LegendKeeper does launch, right, and is like a subscription service or whatever, we're never going to lock you out of stuff that you created. That's super uncool. And so you'll always be able to get your data out no matter what. Like I want people to come into LegendKeeper and feel comfortable that they can leave whenever they want, because you should use whatever works best for you, right? And if that's not LegendKeeper, perfect. We want you to be able to get all of your creative goodies out, right, whenever you need to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm running like kid you not, folks, we're running like 7 games in LegendKeeper, right? Like, I can't imagine us like not doing that. But if I ever needed to, I'd want to be able to pull all 7 games out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And like
that is your right.
Yeah, and like I'll just look, folks. I mean, there's just game after game after game, and I know some of these are like the Eternal World, but like there's a whole bunch of stuff. Traveler. Oh yeah, Patrick, you and I were doing that play by post Traveler game all over the Imperium and all that junk. Nice. I mean, like just so many. Oh man, so many games, and also. Just like a little aside, Braden, I really love that you don't have an opinion about the genre of game. Like I pull up the Traveler one, obviously sci-fi. I pull up Anto's, obviously fantasy, right? And there's no like LegendKeeper UI stuff to make me feel like I'm in kind of the wrong place for my Traveler game.
Yeah, that was very intentional on our part. We kind of had this idea of like if the UI is kind of as like it's sleek, right? But it's like unopinionated, and because we barely even use color, just because we want your content to sort of pop, right? Like we expect the user's content to probably have the color. So yeah.
That's
I
probably
love
the
seeing
biggest
sci-fi stuff
thing.
in LegendKeeper, by the way. It's
Nice.
favorite.
That's probably the biggest thing when people ask me about LegendKeeper and ask me what I think about it versus OneNote or other solutions. I'm always like, the biggest thing I like about LegendKeeper is it's the UI and the features stay out of the way until I need them. If I want to just open a page and just start writing something and write for an hour, nothing gets in the way of that. Or if I want to get super noodly in details, then I can bring in all the elements. But otherwise, it just stays out of the way while I do what I need to do, and then I pull in what features I need. And that's one of the things that I really like about it. It speeds up my workflow immensely.
Yeah. And I love it because you can do this kind of deep dive, like our 4 even sector where we worked in, and you kind of go to that map. Oh wait, there's some stuff down there. You go into that one. So we went to Crenshaw's. Those are the systems we visited.
Yep.
I got each sector mapped out, and the planet names, what it's like, the map of the planet.
Yeah,
and
this is so cool.
Dive.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nuts, and it was really cool as a player to just go in and like explore what Patrick had already done, and then add content to that. Like solid, just so solid. All the maps within maps, and then be like, okay, I'm done with Crenshaw's. Let's go back to the Foraven sector. All right, cool. Let's go over to Gwen or whatever it is.
Yeah. And you were adding characters, so we were working together, adding NPCs that we were running into, since it was sort of a referee-less. That was a referee-less campaign, no game master.
Yeah.
We were working together with Hugo at Death Die Club, and just like kind of rolling random tables, and we were typing stuff in here to keep track of it as we move forward through the game.
Yeah. So
that's so cool.
A lot of different
That's
ways
amazing.
to use this. A lot of different ways to use this.
Oh, we are gonna make night mode default, by the way. I see y'all chatting about it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have this weird thing where like I don't use dark mode for like anything. I don't know. I like my retinas being seared by bright white light. But I hear you. It'll be default probably in the next update.
It's cool.
So whenever you invite new people, they get the night mode.
I have night mode on everything. So all throughout the stream, as I've been tabbing back and forth to like look at worlds and stuff, my little window in the stream will have just been blasted with light every time I come back on to LegendKeeper.
That's how you know you're watching my...
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, well, I feel like we've gone a little over. I love everybody's questions. I love all the interaction. Braden, dude, thank you so much for hosting this and running us through some questions and having this discussion. Like, it means a lot to me at just how responsive you are, not just to me and Anto and Patrick, but like everybody in your Discord. Like, if y'all don't know, LegendKeeper has a really boss Discord, and there's a lot of great discussion going on in there. And dude, you're very responsive to everybody, and I just have to thank you for that as just a consumer of what you're making. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you for bringing your creative minds into the fray. It's I learned so much from you guys talking about it, and ditto about the Discord. The Discord is like my treasure, my Discord fam. Amazing discussion, wonderful feedback that helps me try to improve the app like every day that I'm working on it. Like I just want to make it better and better and better, and I can't do that without you guys. So I'm very thankful.
Yeah. And Anto, dude, thanks a ton for coming on, man. This has been
very welcome.
A real blasty blast. Just like as like a creator watching your stuff, it's really cool to like get to collaborate with you on this. And
yeah, it's been awesome, and it's always good fun doing world building stuff and talking to other people about world building and seeing people being like, "That's a cool idea." I'm like, "Yes, please steal it. Steal my ideas."
Entirely, yeah. And Patrick, dude, like. All the brotherly love between us, like just all the cool stuff that we're doing and everything. So thanks a ton for being here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And, it's been great, and just connecting with Anto even, like I said, immediately I was creating stuff. I'm going to keep raving about that. I'll probably do that 10 years from now. And I remember when I saw that video and I would have created that DM screen right away. And, and Braden, I really must say, it's really kind of changed how I've been able to world build and manage. It's made my life easier. So I'm really super appreciative of the tool and what it's able to do. It's unlike anything that I've been able to work with in the past. So to really support my efforts. So big fan of it. So yeah, really appreciate it. And this is my cyberpunk world. As you can see, Miami's pretty much flooded out. So
That's so
wow.
cool. That's so cool.
Oh, Miami.
I flooded out Miami. There's if you go to my wiki, the only part of Miami, my inspiration. So if you go to places, click down there, click my cyberpunk, click old Miami, Miami walled city. So my inspiration for that is the Kowloon walled city. So that's just a bunch of skyscrapers in Miami that are left standing that people have occupied. So
that's what I love about cyberpunk, because you can do so many like evil things. So good. That's awesome, man. Well, excellent. Everybody on stream, thanks a ton for tuning in. Thanks a ton for staying late. Little bonus to the folks who won, you can invite like a lot of friends, and then they all get to run their project. So we didn't just give out like 10 things or 20 things or however many we just gave out. We really gave out like an exponential number, because you all can invite your friends and let them collaborate with you on your project. But once they're in, they can start making their own projects, and then they can invite people. So like this is something that can really filter out. And don't be bashful with those invites. Like, get your friends in. It's gonna be really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In the chat, let's all go to Miami down there in the flood zone. That'd be awesome. All right. So everyone at home, thanks a ton for tuning in. This has been a blasty blast. We are gonna sign off now. I'm gonna bring back the about start screen just so you've got some cool music to play out to. But everyone, thanks a ton for tuning in. This has been great.
Been awesome. Cheers, folks.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you so much.